Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Surah Yunus. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Alif Lam Ra. These are the verses of the Book of Wisdom. Is it a wonderful people that we send revelations to a man from among themselves, saying, warn mankind, give glad tidings to those who believe, and there is a sure footing for them with their Lord. The infidels say, verily, this man is obviously a sorcerer. Verily, your Lord is Allah, who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and is firmly established on the throne. He regulates everything. No intercessor can there be saved after his leave. This is Allah, your Lord. Therefore, worship him. Will you not then be mindful? All of you will return to him. The promise of Allah is true. Verily, it is He who begins the creation, then causes it to return again, in order that he may recompense those who believe and do good with equity. And those who disbelieve, for them shall be a drink from the boiling fluids and a painful chastisement because they disbelieved. He it is who has made the sun a glow and the moon a light, and measured from her stations, who might know the number of years and the reckoning of time. Allah did not create all this save with a purpose, to demonstrate the truth of his unity. Thus, does Allah make his signs manifest for people who understand. Allah will see. I request Dr. Shaeba Rizvi Sahab se to begin his speech.
जी शुक्रिया. Yunus bhai, can you enable the share screen? Yunus bhai, is the screen being shared right now?
Yeah, we can see it. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, جزاك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العابدون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون. الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن. الذي ليس بصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود. فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته وابتدى بالصخور ميدان أرضه. أفضل الدين معرفته. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خير المبشرين والمنذرين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. Dearest Mu'mineen, Mu'minat, thank you again for allowing me to discuss this topic on a Saturday, and inshallah we'll be back to the regular after this. Some obligations to take care of, and I know that everybody's schedule is tough, so it's not easy to change that. The month of Rajab is here, the month of Niyaz is here. I know people are busy with that as well. I have been asked, or or it's been suggested by our dear organizers, the sermon number 91, which is known as Khutbatul Ashbah. And so just, in accordance with that recommendation, this is the one that I will go to now. And of course, there were some other suggestions made, which I have written down, which are in my mind, and we will, inshallah, go through those as well. It's been a journey. It's been a year, and in a year we covered one sermon approximately. So we'll try and also speed things up a little bit. You may find me not going into too much detail about the Arabic or the terminology there, because that is one of the main things that does end up taking more time as it becomes two topics at once. So inshallah, we'll continue with this. Let's begin with, and also with apologies, I'm not with my usual PowerPoint, but I will be relying on this website. And we have been looking at alislam.org for many of our English translations. Where I was able to find and secure the time to do so, I had added in some translations of my own as we went along. But this translation, I've noted, especially in this sermon here, is very well translated. And to the extent that, English translations can occur. If we look at the intro to this sermon, we will see that it says that Masada ibn Sadaqa has related from Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, as-salatu was-salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, saying that Amir al-Mu'mineen delivered this sermon from the Mimbar Kufa, where at one point someone had asked Amir al-Mu'mineen, as-salatu was-salamu alayhi, describe Allah for us. Now, the word used here is describe. So it's not that, show Allah to us, but it's saying describe Allah for us in a way that we may imagine that we see him with the eyes. So we see a step up over here from trying to see with the eyes. Rather, it is imagining that we see him with the eyes. Now, one demand would be to see Allah with the eyes, and one demand here is different, where it is saying we want to imagine as if we are seeing him. And, on the one hand, that in itself has been said by Amir al-Mu'mineen, as-salatu was-salamu alayhi, when he was asked, about prayer, and Amir al-Mu'mineen said, you should pray to Allah as if you are seeing him. And then when the man said, but that is not possible for me, what can I do? Amir al-Mu'mineen said, pray to Allah as if he is seeing you. So him seeing us, the eye upon us, is a firm part of our iman and faith. When I am driving, and I noticed that some of the maps, they sometimes warn you. It's a weird example, I know, pardon the crude example, but when you are driving, sometimes your map warns you and says light camera ahead, or red light camera ahead, or speed camera ahead. Now, me not able to recognize the camera most of the time, you're driving through the traffic intersection, lots of cars around, lots going on, and the camera is very small, and those who know where it is can spot it. I usually have no idea where the camera is. However, there is a firm belief in me that what this cell phone app has told me is true, and therefore we ensure that we slow down, we don't cross at a high speed, we don't break the red light, and so on. Now, it's a simple example, but it's the idea that you are absolutely firm in your conviction that there is a camera there, and the reason is someone has told us. In the same way, if we can believe an app, there's 124,000 Anbiya and 12 Aimma, 14 Masumeen who have told us that Allah is watching. So that idea of having that firm faith and awareness that there is someone there, that is very important. I find that in the day and age of privacy, there is, an objection to the amount of interference from perhaps government bodies or other organizations and internet companies that are monitoring our social interactions on social media, that are being aware of what we buy, what we shop, what we take an interest in, what we like to, pay attention to, and no privacy, less privacy. People are often talking about privacy. I feel that if one is always aware that Allah is watching, then anybody else watching becomes completely insignificant. It doesn't really seem to matter much. To be aware that we have to account for our deeds to Allah, someone else knowing them becomes insignificant. So I think that on the one hand, I mean, I'm not saying that everything should be public and privacy is not important and these organizations are not infringing upon the rights of others. It's not their right to see everything we're doing. That's Allah's right. But I think that there would be less stress or less objection to it when, or rather, it wouldn't be very uncomfortable because we're used to it. We always know there is one watching. And Amir al-Mu'mineen said that when you are never alone, you know, and even the Quran mentions that. And when you are with three people, the fourth one is Allah. When you are two people, the third one is Allah. And when you are alone, then the one who is with you is Allah. And so that kind of omnipresence is important for us to understand. So here we see it is being said, describe him in a way that it's as if I'm seeing him. Now, interestingly, is the note that the observation that Amir al-Mu'mineen became angry at this request. Now, anger is here should not be taken like perhaps a professor gets angry when a student asks a question, and it could be multiple reasons for that. The student asks a question that is something maybe the professor just discussed and explained, but the student wasn't paying attention. The student asked a question that had an element of rudeness or insult to it. The student asked a question that maybe the professor was not aware of the answer, and so as a defense mechanism, he lashed out in anger. And there could be other reasons to add to that list. But when Amir al-Mu'mineen and it's saying that, you know, the face turned red. Here it's saying that Amir al-Mu'mineen ascended the minbar, and then when he was in a state of anger, his color was changed. So that is his anger. And Amir al-Mu'mineen's anger is because of Allah. So we need to realize that in here, it's not that it's like one would imagine someone getting angry at a question. Amir al-Mu'mineen said that, you know, do you have it? When he was asked, do you have regrets? And he said that I was never asked as much as I can give, and I was never questioned as much as I can answer. So it's nothing like that. But I think that it is showing a level of expectation as well in the people who are in Kufa, who are Muslims, who have benefited from 124,000 prophets, who have benefited from the holiest and most magnificent one that Allah sent upon the earth, Muhammad al-Mustafa ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And also then benefiting from the imamat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And in that situation, to say this, you know, it is also showing that, have you not learned anything? Have you not been listening to what the Quran is saying? Have you not been reading it? Have you not heard the sermons of the holiest messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, describing the presence of Allah and his characteristics, or what we can and what we cannot do? So in this situation, we see him moving forward, and then he, after his praise of Allah and salawat, then he continues the sermon. And in this sermon, he begins with, and again, the organizers of this website, or the writer, has divided it into certain sections as well, like we saw with sermon number 1. At this point, I think it's probably a good idea to compare this, and, you know, to compare this perhaps to what we see happening in Hazrat Musa alayhi salam's time. And what happens at that time, and everybody knows this incident, but there was a difference in what the people of Bani Israel were asking Hazrat Musa alayhi salam to do. Hazrat Musa alayhi salam was being asked to show Allah. They were saying, we want to see him. They were saying, we will not believe in an Allah that we cannot see with our eyes. And so when we look at that, we note that Hazrat Musa's act was very different from Amir al-Mu'mineen's. Hazrat Musa's act was according to their request, which was to show him. Amir al-Mu'mineen is being asked to describe him. So therefore, we do see him instead delivering this sermon as a description. But when Hazrat Musa was asked, it was said, we want to see. So interestingly, as the history mentions, he, out of the tribes of Bani Israel, they selected 7,000 of their most holy, ascetic, the ones with zohad, the ones who were considered to be the most holy, spiritual, and religious by the people. And so they selected 7,000. From that, they narrowed it down to 700. And from that, they narrowed it down to 70. Now, when they had filtered out the 70 who they considered their most holy, they sent them with Hazrat Musa, that if anybody will see Allah, these will see Allah. And then when they went, they go to the Mount of Tur. And the Quran describes it like this. And it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا. And when Musa came at that time to the meeting place, so the meeting place had been decided, and it was the Mount of Tur. قَالَ رَبِّي أَرِنِي. He said, oh my Lord, Rabbi, أَرِنِي, show me, أَنظُرْ إِلَيْكَ. I would like to look upon you. قَالَ لَن تَرَانِي. You can never see me. So Allah is starting with this declaration, you can never see me. قَالَ لَن تَرَانِي. Lan is never. قَالَ لَن تَرَانِي. And then he goes on to say, but look at that Tur. Look at the mountain. And if it stays in its place, then you have seen me. We know what happens is that there is a light that shines upon the mountain so bright and powerful that the mountain crumbles. The ones who are standing upon the mountain also fall to the ground. And then we see that Hazrat Musa goes into a state of unconsciousness, if we can say that, although it would be different for a prophet, because the prophets, and especially the ulul azm Nabi, are those who, the ulul azm sleep with their eyes open. They are always hearing what is happening around them. So it's a different state. So when we say, and Musa was, went into unconsciousness, what we mean is that it was now an altered state. And it was a state of bliss for him, because what he had absorbed from that light was something that, he said, Subhanaka tubtu ilayka wa ana awwalul mu'mineen. And I am the foremost and first of the believers. And so this in itself requires a separate discussion. But just to compare it to here is interesting, because we see now Amir al-Mu'mineen's tactic is to therefore describe it. And when we see him describing it, it starts like so. One moment, sorry. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Praise be to Allah, who is not enriched by the refusal to give away and stinginess. So here we see, there we saw Hazrat Musa showing them that, look, you cannot see him. Now, how would Amir al-Mu'mineen, through his words, describe Allah in a way that explains him, but also shows our limitations? And this questioner who had asked is asking something that is saying, I want to be able to see him, but they're asking to be seeing him with their imagination. Our imagination, which is a very important faculty that Allah has given us, and through it we have done much, we have created much through our imagination. So our imagination is indeed very powerful, and it has allowed us to go to the moon, to send out explorers into space, to enter into the inner realm of an atom, to give medications and to create energy, and to, well, we don't create energy, but to produce it by transforming it from one means to another, etc. All that we see before us on the earth as it is laid out is coming through that faculty of imagination. However, our imagination, as Imam Jafar ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq as-salatu was-salamu alayhi has pointed out, that our imagination is within the realm of creation. And he says you cannot imagine anything that is out of the realm of creation. Now, that is a very, very important statement, and coming from no one else but your Imam, coming from the Ma'sumin, is telling you that it is worth exploring, definitely, and it must be true. So there's a difference between when we say something, I say something, it could be a theory, it could be a hypothesis, it could be something that I've concluded. But here we see the Imam is saying it, so it becomes a law. Now, because I also like to indulge in science and evidence-based clinical science and statistical analysis. So when we say law, that's a big deal. But the Aimma, when they say something, it's a law, and it just makes everything so much easier. So you take this as a law and you apply it. And then you notice that anything you imagine in your mind is actually coming from a foundation that is your sensory database, which is the part of your mind that stores all information from the five senses. And through your five senses, you are able to remember anything that applies to vision, to sound, to sight, to smell, and to touch. And in the beginning of our lives, in the first 2 years, we gather a huge sensory database. And learning that comes afterwards, that succeeds that, is all based upon these five senses in the database that we have created. When we look at the psychological development of the mind, according to many theories that are presented today, there is something that psychology calls formal operations and concrete operations, which are faculties of your mind, which come under the branch of what neuroscience and psychology calls cognition, the ability to think. Cognition is when you assimilate information, you analyze it, you break it down, you take this and put it with that, you take those two things apart. Everything we are doing that we call thinking about information and learning it and processing it and understanding it, comprehending it, this is all based upon these ideas of cognition theoretically. And formal operations or concrete operations are something that we develop in childhood as we're growing. And before puberty, it is mainly the stage of formal operations. And this is where we are able to focus on science and math in a way that the things that are before us, we can calculate and add and put them together. But to do it in our mind in an abstract way comes later. So for most children we see before puberty and even primary school and so on, the learning is you see pictures often. There's 3 ducks or 3 balls or, 3 toys in front of you. You add in another 3, how many do you have? And then when you look at what the operations of the mind that come after puberty, here we see the abstract comes. And that is why in high school, philosophy and theoretical physics and things that we need to imagine here, chemistry, for example, we're not seeing it. We don't see hydrogen. We haven't, well, some have, but most haven't when they're studying chemistry in school. So this type of situation is where we are looking at abstract. Now, these are abstract. So when we say that abstract thinking in our mind, which stems from the imagination, is coming from the sensory database, then abstract thinking in your mind is about deep concepts. And psychology can be abstract, philosophy can be abstract, chemistry and physics, and even calculating numbers in our mind in a sense is abstract. So those things that we do are a higher level, but you use your imagination for things that are quite visible and sensed to you, and then you use it above that for your abstract. However, the foundation and the base is all coming from your sensory database. Therefore, where does Allah come into this? And we cannot sense him. So that's the lowest level, 5 senses. Then upon this is our imagination that deals with those things that directly come from the senses. And then the third level above this is where we're looking at the abstract, and the abstract is not necessarily images in our mind, but it's a very strange thing. When you think about how you think, some things are pictures, but some things are words and thought words, and some are very vague and abstract. They're concepts and kind of like emotions. It's not something that we picture as an emotion, but something that we feel. And the abstract thoughts we think, but we're not seeing something concrete in our mind. So if this is the situation with our mind, where can Allah come into this? Not in the five senses, not in the imagination, not in the abstract. We're not able to put him there. And Amir al-Mu'mineen says, praise be to Allah, who is not enriched by the refusal to give away. He will go on to talk about, what I've been mentioning here in the intro as well. And we'll see that in a moment. Praise be to Allah, who is not enriched by the refusal to give away and stinginess. So we as human beings, if we don't give someone something, it is often because we need it, or it might be our right, or the other person shouldn't have it, or maybe because we will have less now because of that. And of course, Allah is not impoverished by anything. Although everyone who gives away loses except he. So all in their finite being, their finite being, their limitations in their capacity, every time they give something, they are lessening here. However, with Allah, there is no concept of any kind of lessening in what he is giving. He and everyone who withholds is blamed for their stinginess, but he obliges through beneficial bounties and plentiful gifts and grants, and the whole creation depends upon him and what they give. So, of course, we as Muslims know that he has a treasure that is never empty and is forever growing and expanding. And it is something that is beyond our concepts as something we see before us, but rather it is infinite and something that even the abstract mind cannot grasp. He has guaranteed their livelihood and ordained their sustenance. So Allah has provided sustenance, livelihood for all of his creation. And it is through his bestowal of free will upon the creation that some are able to steal the sustenance that others were provided and keep it for themselves and hoard it. So Amir al-Mu'mineen at one point said, I have never seen a person that is hungry. I've never seen the hungry one without seeing the one who has taken more than his share. So this tells us that in the distribution of sustenance upon the world and all the worlds, Allah has sent it and used mediums and means through which it is sent down so that everybody will have their fill. But if one withholds and holds and does not give forward, then we have broken the chain. And he has caused us to all be part of that chain out of his mercy and out of his wanting to elevate our status and out of his wanting us to realize that if his treasure is never, ever going to end, then we do not have anything to fear. And the more we give, the more he will give us. And we become like a river that is flowing and not a dam. He has guaranteed it. He has prepared the way for those who turn to him and those who seek what is with him. So there is a way. There is a way to turn to him. And we call that Sirat al-Mustaqim. And that is none other than Amir al-Mu'mineen. And when we say Ahdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, we know the way to Allah is the Vilayah of Ali, the Vilayah of the Ma'sumin. So for those who turn to him or seek what is with him. So that means we do not seek what is with others, that he has already bestowed upon others, but we seek what is with him. And therefore, how high up do we want to be in that chain? When we have problems and of course, we have to ask each other for help as well. One is not saying that, but the ultimate dua is only, and reliance is only, and tawakkul is only upon Allah. And when we see Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam even just mentioning to the prisoner who was with him and leaving now and is allowed to leave the prison, being told that when you go to the Pharaoh, tell him that, remember, Yusuf is still in prison. So that was something that caused Allah to have Hazrat Yusuf remain in prison for another 7 years, because he should have completely and only asked Allah. So that is a high expectation. And that, of course, is a high status of prophethood. So what can I understand of that or compare it to my life? However, many times one is tempted to call someone else and ask someone else and so on. But the first thing we should do is ask Allah. After we have done dua to Allah, then there may be people that have a means to help us, and one may reach out and we help each other. But first and foremost, him. because then we realize that even if a certain person is helping us out of a difficulty, any kind of difficulty, any kind of support to our situation, well then, it was there because of the tawfiq of Allah. It was Allah who allowed them to help. It was Allah who gave them to you so that you would have a means of support and help through them. So ultimately, we see that it is all coming from there. And therefore, in that situation, when we should only be relying upon Him, where do we stand in there? And what you see is there is a hierarchy, almost like a food chain. I mean, the food chain is a strange example biologically, but this animal eats that, or that creature eats that one, and that one eats that one, and that one eats that one. And we see that it goes all the way up. Humans are at the top of that, as none are hopefully eating us, but we are taking part in the livelihood, in the life, and the sustaining creatures and domestic farm animals that Allah has given to us for this very purpose. So therefore, would it not be best to be in that hierarchy closest to Allah? So we should ask Allah, we should ask Him, and then we are now not relying upon getting it from another medium, but we have moved up in our station. And this is qurbat as well. This is an aspect of nearness to Allah. But Allah says, well, lillahi al-asma'ul husna, and for Allah is the asma'ul husna in the Quran. Well, lillahi al-asma'ul husna fad'u biha. Therefore, ask, do dua through them, biha. Through what? Asma'i husna. What are the asma'ul husna? They are the beautiful names of Allah. So therefore, we must ask through the beautiful names of Allah. When we know that the Shias know that the Ma'asumin said, Nahnu asma'ul husna, we are the beautiful names of Allah. So therefore, we ask by their names, for their sake, through their medium, through their wasila. So they become that means. And therefore, to gain nearness to Allah, to be higher up in this hierarchy, and to have tawakkul, and to have reliance upon Him, we do not need to ask anybody else but the Imam of our time. I mean, the Masumeen and others related to them can be a wasila, yes. But for us, the most common wasila that we can ask for through is our own Imam al-Hujjat al-Qaim, Ajjallahu farajahum, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So we see that he is as generous about what he is asked for. He is as generous about what he is asked for. And he is about that for which he is not asked. And that is incredible. You know, he is as generous about what he is asked for, but as he is not asked. And this tells us now that he is the first. And therefore, if you look at what he has been generous about, what he has not been asked for, it is such an important part of our realization of his mercy, our realization of what he has given to us. And we did not ask to be created. We did not ask to be created as the ashraful makhluqat. We did not ask to be created with the great blessing of intellect, nor my eyesight, nor my hearing, nor the legs that carry me places, nor the arms that allow me to make efforts, nor the face that allows me to communicate with the others around me. All of these things did not have to be given, but he gave it all, and he continues to give. And even those who are not asking, he is giving. And even those who are transgressing him, he is giving. Those who break his laws, those who inflict tyranny upon his creation, those who cause disharmony in a universe that he created out of harmony, those who bring hatred in the universe he created out of love. All of these people are still, he is the one who is bestowing upon them. He is the first for whom there was no before, so that there could be anything before him. He is the last for whom there is no after, so that there could be anything after him. You know, it's an incredible idea, or rather something that we should be thinking about when we say he is the first, awwalu, and he is the last, ya akhiru. Ya awwalu, ya akhiru. Ya awwalul awwalin wa akhirul akhirin. He is the first of the most, of the foremost, and the last of those who are last. Now, this first and last brings two concepts into it. The first and last brings the concept of time, and the first and last brings the concept of numbering as well. So time and numbers. Now, on the one hand, we are saying that he is the first and foremost and he is the last. But really, now we're bringing all of creation and all of our knowledge into this. To say, Ya Awwalo, you are bringing all that you know about creation before you that's in time and numbers. And then you're saying, but he is even before that. You are bringing all that is before you and the last of what you can possibly imagine. So when you imagine the beginning, maybe we go back to a Big Bang, for example, or maybe we go to Awwalu ma khalaqallahu nuri, and the Nur Muhammadi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, the first thing that we see appearing, we don't see it, but appearing in the universe, he is even before that. When we imagine the end, I don't know what the end is, because we seem to say that there will be, we believe there is a day of judgment, we believe that we will go to heaven and hell, there is eternal life, and so how is there even an ending? We do not have the concept or faculty to imagine an ending, but if there was an ending, he would continue to exist after that. Surah Rahman, Kullu man alayha fan wa yabqa wajhu rabbika. So everything here is fan, it is fana, it is temporary, it is unlimited, it has an expiry date. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ. But what will remain, what is baki, what is baqa, is going to be the face of your Lord. Now, even when we look at this, what we see is that the face of your Lord, why not say Allah? Why not say, he is the last? And وَيَبْقَى Allah, who will remain? Allah will remain. No, وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ. So why the face of your Lord? And wajhullah is Amir al-Mu'mineen, salatu wassalamu alayhi wa Muhammad. So here we see the Quran is saying that even if everything was destroyed, the Masumeen will still be there. They were there before everything comes in, and even if everything is destroyed, they will still be there. So this is the beginning and the end. This is the awwal and the akhir as we can imagine it. So what we are imagining is awwal is that Nur Masumeen. What we are imagining akhir is Nur Masumeen, salatu wassalamu alayhim. And therefore, what comes before or after them? So it is relative. So we see that even Allah's awwalu and akhiru is relative, and it's relative to our own ideas of what is first or last. Not ideas, but some people ideas, and some people according to what we know to be the law, as is mentioned in hadith. That's a law and a fact for me. So therefore, these two. In Tafsir al-Furat, which is a very good tafsir and one that, we should definitely read if we get the chance to. And I'm sure it's online, and maybe not in English, unfortunately, but in Arabic and Urdu and, Farsi it can be found. And when we look at Tafsir al-Furat, actually, I haven't personally seen the Farsi translation. Urdu and Arabic I have seen. So Tafsir al-Furat. So therefore, in this, what you will see is that there's a very important event, and it's being described by Hazrat Abu Zar al-Ghifari, the great and esteemed companion of the holiest messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Hazrat Abu Zar says that one time we were in Medina and we were in the mosque, and after we were about to leave, and then the holiest messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, says to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he turns to his brother and says to him, he says, "Oh Ali, I would like you tomorrow after the Salat al-Fajr, I would like you to go to Jannat al-Baqi, the graveyard area. I want you to stand upon an elevated point, and I want you to say salam to the sun." So Amir al-Mu'minin says, okay, the people are astounded. What a strange request. What is happening here? Why is he being asked to do this? What is the outcome of this? Do we actually think that the sun will reply? Why would we do this? And what is Amir al-Mu'minin going to say? Now, Hazrat Abu Zar relates that they all go. And with them are many companions, including the first two caliphs of Islam and the typical group that we would expect to be there, that were there in most occasions. They all come with Amir al-Mu'mineen. The holiest messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad, is not there. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes and stands upon an elevated mound, and he stands there and he looks at the sun and says, a salam upon you, O sun, O new creation of Allah, which the son, of course, is very, very old, but he is saying, "Oh, new creation of Allah, oh, the one who follows Allah's laws to the letter and is always moving as Allah has willed." So after saying this, what we see is that the son now responds. I cannot imagine what that voice would be like, what it would feel like for the son, which is very, very far away, but to respond in a way that they all heard it. Now, interestingly, the son replies in this short reply and says, "Alayka salam," and salam upon you, ya, O ancient being of Allah. So the son is being described as new, but the son knows Amir al-Mu'mineen has been present from way before the son was created. "O salam upon you, ancient being of Allah, ya awwalo, ya akhiro, ya zahiro, ya batino, wa huwa bi kulli shay'in alim." And after he says this, these 5 statements, Ya awwalo, Ya akhiro, Ya zahiro, Ya batino, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in alim. It is written that, as Abu Zar says, we all went unconscious. We passed out. Just as soon as that voice, whether it was the awe of the voice or what was being said, the situation, the atmosphere, they all passed out. He says when they woke up, they didn't see Amir al-Mu'mineen there. Amir al-Mu'mineen was nowhere to be seen. And, so this is of course, not easy. I cannot imagine. I mean, this is the sun and it's one little ray, and its rays shine upon us. And we find it difficult to hear the sun speaking. And then, to imagine the nur of the Masumeen, if it came as it was and spoke to us, without having that form of clay that we saw Amir al-Mu'mineen upon the earth in. It was a human form. If he had spoken to us in that nur form, then, everything probably would have been, I don't know. I mean, consciousness of losing it would have been the least of it, definitely. The impact would have been much more powerful. So therefore, in that situation, what happens is they wake up. When they wake up, they run back to the holiest messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when they go there, it is said that in Tafsir al-Furat, that the first caliph said to the holiest messenger, said that you will not believe what we just saw. And the messenger says, what did you see? And he says that we are very, very anxious and very worried, and we do not understand. We're so confused. And the holiest messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says, and what is that confusion? What do you mean? And then he says that what the son replied to Ali with those words and titles are what the Quran says for Allah. So we do not understand this. And he says that if we tell you, you also will be very, very anxious, confused, and worried. So it is strange that you would say that to the holiest messenger, who actually asked Imam Ali to go and talk to the son. And it shows a level of knowledge and understanding about the Holy Prophet, or rather, underestimation, I would say, big time. And so therefore we see the Holy Prophet says, what did he say? Now remember that when we are understanding the Masumeen and we are understanding Allah, through, for example, our ma'rifah of Amir al-Mu'mineen salatu wassalamu alayhi. So what happens is our capacity to understand Amir al-Mu'mineen salatu wassalamu alayhi is not coming from our sensory database. It's not coming from our imagination of that, but rather above that, our highest level, we're in a very abstract realm of thought. And there we are able to imagine some things about the qualities of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And when we do that, we always say Allahu Akbar. So Allahu Akbar. So however higher we are taking that, Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater. Allah is the one who Amir al-Mu'mineen did sajda to. So in that sense. So therefore, when we are looking at what the reply is to these people, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did reply, but according to them, and they were already so anxious they were not able to understand. Otherwise, when you look at what the Masumeen have said to those who are worthy of a higher level of an answer, you will see that it was much deeper, and it was more abstract, and it was definitely more very enlightening, compared to this level that these people had as an understanding. So the answer that is given is based upon them. This tells us very importantly that everybody should worship the same Allah, but everybody's understanding of Allah is different. And therefore, everybody's level is different. And therefore, it is based upon our understanding of Amirul Mu'mineen, or, the Masumin as well. He is the forefront, the emblem, the shining light that was sent and was explained the most. So that is why I always take his name. However, of course, the 14 Masumin are there definitely, and not to take away from anything like that, but just as that forefront, and therefore, you will see me often just referring to him. And when I say that, I do mean the Nur of the Masumin, of course. As-salatu wassalamu alayhim ajma'in. And therefore, what is our understanding of Amirul Mu'mineen is very different. And when you look at the people in Medina, all of them had a different understanding. And what Hazrat Salman had an understanding of was not what Hazrat Abu Zar had an understanding of, or not what Hazrat Ammar or Hazrat Bilal, and so on, and all the people of Medina. So therefore, when we talk to each other, we often have to gauge what is this person's level of understanding, and then we try to go accordingly. So what is the answer that is given here? The Prophet says, what did the son say? And they say, or this one said, the son said, alayka salam ya awwalu. And so the holiest messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, yes, is not Ali the first to believe in me? Is not Ali the first to want to accept my prophethood? Is he not the first one who said that I will be your support, I will fight for you, I will defend you, I will dedicate my life? And they all said, yes, that's true. We agree with that. But then they say, but the second point is such that even you will get worried. You will not have an answer for. What did he say? He said, Ya akhiru. Okay, is Ali not the one who is going to be with me to the end? Ali is the one who will be with me till my last breath. He will forever support me, and he will never stop. And they say, okay, yes, okay, that is fine. But there is no way that the third statement can be explained in any way. It will definitely confuse you as well. What is the third statement? He said, Ya Zahiru. And so the holiest messenger replied, well, Ya Zahiru, is Ali not the one upon whom my ilm is zahir, upon whom the knowledge is manifest, upon whom I bestowed the knowledge that was bestowed to me? And they say, okay, yes, fine, that is zahir. He says, but how will you explain this? The son said, Ya batinu. And then the holiest messenger says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, well, is Ali not the one who is aware of my secrets of my batin? That means he is aware of all that I have said and bestowed as well in the realm of knowledge from the Madinatul Ilm. And also he is aware of all of my asrar, of my secrets, and those hidden treasures which have not been revealed yet. Ali as-salatu wassalamu is aware of this as well. And they say, okay, what about وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ? And then the holiest messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, well, Ali is the one who has been given knowledge of all that has passed and all that is to come. And then, interestingly, even though the reply was perfect, from the perfect being, perfectly according to what could be understood by them, many of them had an element of denial inside, because the Tafsir al-Furat ends this incident with this sentence saying that as they walked out, one said to the second, and one said to the other, that today the holiest messenger has put us in great darkness, That means they did not receive the enlightenment. They were not aware. They did not understand. But when you look at the levels of the Shias of Ali, when you look at their status and their ma'rifah and their understanding, and you see some of the things that Amir al-Mu'mineen said to them, quite different. So, if you were to ask some of them, what is Ya Awwalu, they would say that the first thing to come into existence by the ultimate cause, which is Allah, the ultimate effect of the ultimate cause is the nur of the Ma'sumin, Ya Abbalu. We cannot imagine Allah, but if we realize they are first, then we can say, well, He is before that. And by that, we elevate the status in our mind. I mean, for me to be born and say, well, Allah was before me, that's a very low level. And then for me to say, well, Allah was before the earth was created, that's still not high enough. To say Allah was before the Big Bang and the universe was created, that's still, we can go higher. To say that Allah is before the Ma'sumin, now what we are saying is we are reaching the point that we should. That is the Awwalu. Ya Akhiru is in the same way, that if all is gone, فَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would continue even beyond that. And then, Ya Zahiru. And so, we say, if Allah is Zahir and Batin, He is not Zahir in a way that He is manifest, that we can sense Him. And He is not hidden in a way that we are unaware of Him. So therefore, we are always aware of His presence. Amir al-Mu'mineen in this same sermon goes on to say that, the confession of the created things, that their existence is owed to Him. So therefore, Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying there's a confession from all created beings that they are created. And there is something inside that makes everybody know that. We all realize that. That is why you will see that no one has been believed in more than Allah, and no one has been denied more than Allah as well. There's many things around us that people will always deny, and in theories and scientific endeavors, many things are denied, but it's never by everybody. If black holes were denied by scientists at some point, not that it was, but as an example, then that would be by the physics community. If a certain theory was denied and later proved to be true, then it would have been denied by limited people. Some things are very obvious and we know they're not true. So the child knows that, for example, there's not going to be a Santa Claus that's actually coming to deliver it, but rather it's their own parents. At some point they realize this. There's many things that we know that are not true, and we don't bother denying them because it's evident they're not true. And there's many things that people thought were true and they denied, but it wasn't universal. Universally, every being has the capability to believe in Allah and deny Allah. And when you look at the ideas that are discussed, no one is denied more than Allah in a universal sense. That means that anywhere where there's someone who does not believe is going to deny Allah. And there is a certain amount of effort made to deny Him. It's not denying Him like just, oh yeah, like we ignore it, Like, for example, people are discussing, I'm using that Santa Claus example again. You don't bother. Like, okay, they think He's real, fine, and it doesn't matter. Someone says the earth is flat. We don't bother convincing them. Like, if you're still not convinced, what do you do? But with Allah, you will see that there's a constant need to deny it. You don't see that passion for other things where people are always saying, no, that doesn't exist. No, that doesn't exist. No, this doesn't exist. But the atheistic movement and the movement to deny Allah is very much motivated. They're dedicated. They're always doing it. I mean, do you note the amount? It's almost like, as we say, chor ki dari mein tinka, where we say that you kind of like, no, I didn't do that, but you did. I didn't do that, but you did. You overcompensate for something because inside it's true. You overcompensate in your denial of Allah because it's true. If you want to deny Him in your room and be done with it. Deny Him in your heart and be done with it. But no, you have to go on social media. You have to give lectures. You have to give speeches. There's atheists who visit country after country giving speeches in front of hundreds and thousands of people and lectures in their denial of Allah. Nothing has been denied more than Him. Why? Because nothing exists more than Him. Why do they overcompensate to this point? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen says there is a confession in all created things that their existence owes itself to Allah. And it is that denial that is constant. Inside that voice needs to be crushed. The voice inside that is confessing, oh, human, you were created by Allah. That is what needs to be crushed. So therefore, when we say Zahiro and Batino, He is not Zahir in the sense that He's you can see him, and he's not batin in the sense that you can deny him. No, he is so manifest that you are not able to sense him through your faculties. He is so hidden that you cannot sense him through your faculties. But he is zahir as he is batin. He is batin as he is zahir. And when we look at what the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying that Ali has the zahir of my ilm and the batin of my secrets, yes, as well. But when we look at what is zahir and batin in terms of Amir al-Mu'mineen and relating it to Tawheed, then we understand that Amir al-Mu'mineen has been made zahir. And we can understand through what is manifest of Amir al-Mu'mineen some qualities of Allah in an indirect way. We can understand that Allahu Akbar, in other words. And when we look at the asrar, the batin of Amir al-Mu'mineen, it becomes very difficult to understand. And that aspect of Amir al-Mu'mineen tells us that, it reminds us that if we cannot understand Amir al-Mu'mineen, how will we understand Allah? And therefore, we will conclude it at this point right over here. And we will continue with a few minutes spent on the holy Imam Musa al-Qadhim. As-salatu wassalamu alayhi Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. For his martyrdom date is here. And when we look upon his life and his teachings, and when we look upon 54 years of life, about 24 years of imamate. In the last 14 years of his imamate, they were spent in jail because this was the time when Harun Rashid took over his brother's, Mansur's caliphate. Harun Rashid did not want to make the same mistake, or rather the same allowance that Mansur did. Because you'll see in Mansur's time, you'll see, Imam Jafar as-salatu wassalamu alayhi, before that Imam Muhammad Baqir as-salatu wassalamu alayhi, having at least to a certain extent some opportunities to deliver teachings and the maktab of the Ahlul Bayt in Islam and the deen of Allah to the people of Medina and the people who came to ask them things and delivering lectures. It was not an easy time for them either. However, they got that opportunity. And Harun did not want to do that with the seventh Imam. Imagine the amount of knowledge that would have been passed on if 3 of our Imams had been given that opportunity. Yes, it was given to 2 to a certain extent. Even that was not the way people think it is, like it was a time of peace and harmony. But our Imam is such that, he is being imprisoned. The guards come to take him away. And this was the last time he was taken away to jail, after which we see that his children did not see him. It was the city of Medina. The guards of Harun Rashid, the soldiers who had been sent to get our Imam, come. They break through his door of his home. He is on the prayer mat. They do not let him finish his prayer. They say, "Get up, Harun, the Caliph has asked for you." The Imam gets up and comes and says that, "I know that now that I'm going, I will not come back." It is said that he has 18 sons and 18 daughters, or some have said 19 sons and 18 daughters. So 36 children to 37 in that home. And he says that, "I want to just say farewell to my children, to my daughters, and I want to say goodbye to them. They will not see me again." The soldier says that this is not possible. We have to come right away. One of the other soldiers, perhaps maybe of a softer heart somewhat, comes and says, "Okay, what we will do is, if you can give a zamin, that means somebody will come and stay in your place with us so that you do not escape." They were thinking the Imam was going to escape, or he's going to use some kind of method to, get away. The Imam says that the zamin, and they say yes, and they look around. Now the crowd is gathered, there's people around, they're watching this, and as the soldier says, "If anybody will come forward and stay with us tonight in his place, then we will let him spend that time in his home, and tomorrow we will take him with us." Nobody steps forward. Nobody. Then a Christian man, it is said, a Christian man steps forward. And he was in a store, which is nearby, and he steps out of his shop and he says, I will. And they look at him. They say, but you are a Christian. You know, this is, you know, why are you doing this when the Muslims are not stepping forward? And he says that, I know this is no ordinary man and this is no ordinary family. And he says that they have the qualities of the prophets that we have heard of in Bani Israel. And the soldier says, what do you mean? What do you speak of here? And he says that I have been neighbors with these people for many, many years. He says there is a wall that separates our homes. And he says that I never ever had any idea that this man has 18 daughters in his home. He said, I have never heard a voice. I have never ever seen anybody. I have never heard a sound from a female. And this is the family of Bibi Zainab. Bibi Zainab को किस तरह से शाम में ले जाया गया, ये वो खानदान है जिनकी आवाज तक सुनाई नहीं देती. वो कहता है कि मैं रुक जाऊंगा, मैं जामिन बनूंगा. जामिन बन जाता है. इमाम अपने औलाद से रुखसत होते हैं, रात भर इसी में मसरूफ रहते हैं. अगले दिन इमाम निकल आते हैं. 14 साल इमाम जिंदान में रहे. जिन जिंदान में रहे उनमें से जिंदान ऐसे भी थे जिसमें कुआं था, जिसमें हिला नहीं जा सकता था. जिंदान ऐसा भी था जिसमें इमाम हालत रुकू से नहीं उठ सकते थे. हमारे इमाम अजल्लाहु फरजहुम अपने जद पे इस तरह से सलाम भेजते हैं कि सलाम मेरे जद पर जिसके गोश्त को जंजीरों ने खा लिया था. गोश्त को जंजीरों ने खा लिया था. वो जंजीरें जिनमें आखिरी वक्त तक इमाम पे रही. कहा जाता है कि एक इंसान के वजन के बराबर जंजीरें थी जिनमें इमाम को जकड़ा हुआ था. जब भी ताबूत देखते हैं आप, शब ये ताबूत उठता है, अगर उस पर जंजीरें लगी हुई हो तो कलेजा कट जाता है. हमारे इमाम को इस तरह से जहर दिया कि आपको पता है कि जब एक सहाबी आया है इमाम का, सिंधी बिन शहाक से कहा कि इमाम को देखना चाहता हूं मैं. उनको ले जाके एक जगह से, एक खिड़की से दिखाया. वो सहाबी कहता है कि मैंने देखा जिंदान में अंधेरा था, कुछ नजर नहीं आ रहा था, इतनी तारीकी थी, लेकिन ऐसा लगा जैसे कोई काला कपड़ा जमीन पे किसी ने रखा हुआ है. बस ऐसे ही काला कपड़ा पड़ा हुआ है जमीन पे. मैंने कहा यहाँ कहाँ है मेरे इमाम? मुझे अपने इमाम नजर नहीं आता. सिंधी कहते हैं वो जो तुम्हें कपड़ा नजर आ रहा है ना जमीन पे, वो तुम्हारे इमाम है. सजदे की हालत में. उसके बाद उसको मौका मिला इमाम से गुफ्तगू करने का. इमाम से कहा, मौला आपके असहाब बेताब है आपसे मिलने के लिए, आपसे मिलने नहीं देते ये जिंदा के दरोगा. इमाम ने कहा, मेरे चाहने वालों से कह देना कि 3 दिन के बाद बगदाद के पुल पे आ जाए, मैं उनसे बगदाद के पुल पे मिलूंगा. 3 दिन के बाद जहर का असर हो चुका था. पूरा जहर ऐसा दिया गया था इमाम को कि 3 दिन तक तड़प के इमाम से आके लोगों ने कहा कि आप इस पे दस्तखत करें. आप हारून ने दस्तखत करवाने चाहे कि इस तहरीर पे दस्तखत करें कि आपको किसी ने मारा नहीं है, आप खुद अपनी मौत जा रहे हैं दुनिया से. इमाम ने कहा, मैं कभी दस्तखत नहीं करूंगा इस पे, और मैं सबको गवाह बनाता हूं कि मुझे जहर दिया गया है, और मेरा रंग सुर्ख हो जाएगा, फिर जर्द हो जाएगा, फिर सफेद हो जाएगा, फिर उसके बाद मैं इस दुनिया से चला जाऊंगा. ये जहर ऐसा था कि खून और कलेजे को खत्म कर देता था. इमाम तड़प के तन्हा उसी जिंदान में, उन्हीं जंजीरों में, जंजीरें नहीं हटी थी. आपको पता है क्यों? क्योंकि जब उन मजदूरों ने ले जाके बगदाद के पुल पे फेंका था, इमाम को फेंका था, तो जब ये लोग आए थे इमाम को बचाने के लिए, उनके असहाब जिनसे कहा गया था 3 दिन के बाद तुम आ जाना, उनमें जो एक कबीला था सबसे बड़ा, उनका जो سردار تھا، اس کا نام سلیمان تھا. سلیمان نے چاہا کہ امام کو دفن کر دیا جائے، امام کی لاشیں کو اٹھا دیا جائے، لیکن 3 دن تک کسی کو آگے نہیں آنے دیا. کیوں؟ کیونکہ جو بھی گزرتا تھا پل سے ان سے کہا جاتا تھا اس پہ دستخط کرو کہ تم دیکھ لو امام کو کوئی زخم نہیں لگا ہے، تلوار سے نہیں مارا ہے، امام اپنے ہی موت مرے ہیں. بس یہی بتانے کے لیے کہ کربلا دوبارہ نہ ہو جائے، کہ میرا تختہ نہ الٹ جائے، وہ نہ ہو جائے جو یزید کے ساتھ. بڑا ملعون شاطر تھا یہ. تو اس نے جو 3 دن تک کہا کہ اللہ اکبر، بس آخری جملہ کیسے بیان ہو. وہ تو پھر امام علی رضا آئے تھے، کس طرح سے اپنے بابا کو اٹھا کے دفن کیا ہوگا. لیکن اس سے پہلے جب سلیمان سے برداشت نہ ہوا، اپنے قبائل سے کہا اب حملہ کر دو. 3 دن ہو گئے، انہوں نے ایسا حملہ کیا کہ ہارون کے فوجی وہاں سے چلے گئے. پھر امام کا لاشا ان کو ملا. شاید امام موسیٰ کہہ رہے ہوئے میرے جد حسین آپ کا لاشا بھی 3 دن تک کربلا کی صحرا میں پڑا تھا، میرا لاشا بھی 3 دن تک بغداد کے پھل پہ پڑا رہا. آ کے انہوں نے دیکھا زنجیریں جو تھی گوشت کو کھا چکی تھی. آ کے انہوں نے کہا ہم کس طرح سے زنجیریں اتارے، مولا کو دفن کرنا ہے. اس وقت ایک گھوڑا سوار آیا تھا اور اس گھوڑے سوار نے آ کے کہا تھا میں انہی کا فرزند ہوں. اور امام نے کہا میں انہی کا فرزند ہوں، ان زنجیروں کو رہنے دو. میرے بابا چاہتے تھے کہ قیامت کے دن بھی وہ انہی زنجیروں کے ساتھ پیش ہو. فَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنقَلَبٍ يَنقَلِبُونَ عَلَىٰ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ.
قبلہ اب تمام مومنین اور مومنات سے معروضہ ہے کہ ایک سورہ فاتحہ اور 3 سورہ اخلاص کے ساتھ مرحومین اور برادر حسین جعفری صاحب، جن میں سید یوسف علی، لطیف النساء بیگم and their deceased children and grandchildren, Mir Nawazish Ali and Khairunisa Begum, their children and grandchildren, the deceased children and grandchildren, Sayyid Ammar Zaidi ibn Sayyid Azhar Zaidi, and also a moment just passed away, brother Azhar Rashid in Houston. Surah Fatiha for all.
الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین اهدنا الصراط المستقیم انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. قل هو الله احد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا احد. قل هو الله احد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا احد. قل هو الله احد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا احد. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ. مولانا آپ جو ہے ذرا دعا بھی پڑھا دیں، اور نیکسٹ سنڈے یہ سلسلہ انشاءاللہ
جی بالکل
رمضان تک. جی جی شکریہ بہت بہت. اور جو ہے مومنین جو پارٹیسپیٹ کرے ہیں یہ کیونکہ ٹائمنگز اور کئی لوگوں کو معلوم نہیں ہے کہ یہ ہم سیٹرڈے کر رہے ہیں، تو آپ جتنا ہو سکے یہ تبلیغ کریں یہ ٹیپس کی، اور جو ہے یہ بہت ہی اچھا پلیٹ فارم ہے، اور مولانا کے اتنے نئے پوائنٹس اور یہ سننے کے لیے جو ہے سب کو فائدہ اٹھا سکتے ہیں. جزاک اللہ مولانا. اگر کوئی کوشچن آنسرز ہیں تو 4-5 منٹ ہیں، آپ جو ہے وہ بھی ڈسکس کر سکتے ہیں مولانا سے. جزاک اللہ.
جی مصطفیٰ صاحب، بس یہی دعا ہے کہ امام موسیٰ الکاظم کا نام ہی الکاظم، جو اپنے تمام غصے پہ، غضب پہ، جذبات پہ جن کا مکمل کنٹرول ہو، اس کو الکاظم کہتے ہیں. اور بس یہ بھی دعا ہے کہ ہم سب بھی اپنے دین کو، اپنی زندگی کو اپنے تعلیم اور عقل کے حساب سے چلائیں، اور کبھی بھی اپنے فیصلوں میں جذبات اور ان چیزوں کو نہ استعمال کریں. لیکن ساتھ ساتھ اپنے جذبات کو بیدار رکھنا بھی ضروری ہے. ظاہر ہے کہ کہا جاتا ہے کہ امام کا کربلا کے لیے اور اس کے انتقام کے لیے امام موسیٰ کاظم کا اتنا زیادہ غضب و جذبہ تھا، اور بس اسی کو انہوں نے کنٹرول کیا اور انتقام نہیں لیا، انتظار کیا المنتقم کا. تو یہ جو انتظار ہے اور یہ جو کنٹرول ہے یہ ہم میں بھی آئے تو ہر لحاظ سے. تو ایک طرف تو جذبات ہمارے ہونے چاہیے انتقام لینے کے، لیکن ساتھ ساتھ جو ہے ہر چیز میں ہر وقت عقل کا پہلو اور جذبات سے نہیں بلکہ اپنے علم و عقل سے ہر قدم اٹھائے.
بے شک.
جزاک اللہ مولانا. ایسے مسائل میں کبھی سنا نہیں تھا ساتویں امام کے جو آپ تو تفصیل سے بیان کیے. الحمدللہ الحمدللہ. جزاک اللہ مولانا. جزاک اللہ.
حسین بھائی آپ کے یہ جو ہے یہ سیشنز جو ہوئے تھے 5 اور اس کے اس میں جو ہے ہم کئی چیزیں سیکھ سکے ہیں اور اللہ آپ کو ہر وقت کے لیے جو ہے اس کا فائدہ اور ثواب اور آپ کی فیملی کے لیے آپ کے جو فیملی ممبرز ہیں ان کی صحت کے لیے ہم دعا گو ہیں.
جی شکریہ مصطفیٰ. بس شہزادی قبول کرے. سب سے پہلے تو ہے مولانا کا شکر ادا کرنا ہے اور بس اللہ مجھے بس توفیق دے, سب کو توفیق دے کہ جتنا اپنا مال ہے ٹائم ہے یہی نیک کاموں میں انشاءاللہ اس میں شرکت کریں. بہت بہت شکریہ. جزاک اللہ. جزاک اللہ. عالی مدد.
آپ کا بھی شکریہ. جی ہاں
آپ کا بہت شکریہ حسین صاحب, حسین بھائی. آپ نے بس انشاءاللہ آپ سے کبھی نہ کبھی ملاقات بھی ہوگی, آپ سے اس طرح ملاقات ہوگی, لیکن آپ کی بہت کانسٹنٹ ایفرٹ اور فیڈ بیک اور آپ نے بہت بہت اچھی اچھی چیزیں بتائیں بھی اور کہیں بھی اور پوچھی بھی, تو بے حد مشکور. آپ ہمیشہ دعاؤں میں شامل ہیں, دل میں شامل ہیں. مجھے بھی رکھیے گا اپنی دعاؤں میں.
آپ کا ممنون ہوں مولانا, آپ کا ممنون ہوں. اللہ آپ کو اور ترقی دے انشاءاللہ, اور انشاءاللہ آپ کے توفیقات میں اللہ اور اضافہ کرے, اور بہت انشاءاللہ آگے اللہ کی مدد سے انشاءاللہ آپ سے ضرور انشاءاللہ کانٹیکٹ رہیں گا. اور مولانا جو لوگ بیمار ہیں ان کے لیے آپ دعا ریکویسٹ کریں اور پھر سلام پڑھا دیجیے انشاءاللہ.
جی بسم اللہ. یہ دعا ہے بار الہ یا ربی یا ربی یا رب یا رب محمد و علی و فاطمہ و حسن و حسین. جو بیمار ہیں, جو پریشان ہیں, جس مرض میں مبتلا ہو یا جس پریشانی میں ہو, جن کی اولاد نہیں, جن کی شادیاں نہیں ہوئی, جن کے جو مشکلات ہیں, بس مشکل کشا کے صدقے میں دعا ہے کہ تمام پریشانیاں دور ہوں, تمام مشکلات دور ہوں. جو بیمار ہیں ان کو مکمل شفا یابی ملے, اور ہمارے ایمان میں اگر کمزوریاں ہیں اور امراض ہیں ان کو بھی اللہ دور کرے. ہماری توفیق میں اضافہ فرمائے کہ ہم اپنے امام کے سامنے سرخرو ہو کے کھڑے ہو سکیں. اس دور میں بڑے لوگ بہت مشکلوں سے گزر رہے ہیں, چاہے وہ صحت کے حوالے سے ہو, مال کے حوالے سے ہو, عزت و آبرو کے حوالے سے ہو. تو بس 5 دفعہ ام یجیبو کی تلاوت کر کے اللہ سے دعا ہے کہ تمام چیزیں ہمارے امام کے خیر میں حل فرمائے, ان کے ظہور میں تاجیل فرمائے. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. من یجیب المضطر اذا دعاه ویکشف السوء. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف 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 السوء. يا أرحم الراحمين بحق محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد.
سو نیکسٹ ویک انشاءاللہ ہم سنڈے کے سیشن پہ چلے جائیں گے نا مصطفیٰ انشاءاللہ.
جی ہاں جی ہاں جی ہاں اللہ کے فضل سے
انشاءاللہ. جی انشاءاللہ.
انشاءاللہ. اور آپ کا کام یہ ہے حسین بھائی